just when you come in the studio and you're not prepared and you don't know what you're doing, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, it's not that I need the money this bad. I'm not balling, but I don't need the money that bad. I'm here to make records, not just to leave something on loop for you.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Keyz from Keyz Productions. Welcome to another episode of Behind. See, I keep changing the name. Used to be Behind the Mix. Now it's On the Mic. Shout out to my whole community that made me change the name. I keep wanting to say Behind the Mix, but it's definitely On the Mic. So welcome to another episode of of On the Mic. And on today, I'm super excited. I'm super stoked. I have a legend with us on today. He is, oh man, he's an excellent engineer. He's a great producer. He's worked with man, a lot of big names. He worked with Donnie McClurkin,
Mhm.
Wiz Khalifa, The Roots, Schoolboy Q. I try to remember these things by memory, and so much more people, and we'll get into all of that. But if you can't tell, I'm really excited on today. Who we have with us? We have none other than the one and only Paul Willie Green. Womack, sir, how are you?
Yo, thank you for having me. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great today. It's a beautiful day. Springtime is rolling around, and I'm excited to come in here and chop it up about what we do and what we love most.
Well, once again, thank you so much for jumping on. Real quick before we get into like all the deep questions and stuff like that,
Hmm.
can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do in your own words?
For sure. Like you said, my name is Paul Womack. They call me Willie Green. I'm a producer, engineer, songwriter, arranger. We all do a little bit of everything nowadays. I'm born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut, but I've been living in Brooklyn for, I don't know, 16, 17 years now. And, I'm very lucky. I get to make records every day, and that's a beautiful thing, and that's what my life is, doing the family thing and doing the record thing and just trying to make it all happen. So that's the long and short of it.
All right, cool. So, how'd you get the name Willie Green? Is that like your nickname, or how did you get it? Because it's like Willie Green. I'm like, no, that's Paul. No, that's Willie Green. Like, so how did you get that name, and what do you really want people to call you?
Oh man, that's a good one. Back in the day when everybody gets started, you go through a lot of different rap names. There's a lot of things, and a lot of things. I'm glad that I stuck with Willie Green because there's other things that I don't know if I'd be in the same position if I had stuck with Paulie Corleone rather than Willie Green. You know what I mean? Like I'm an old head, so when I really got started, I was coming out of like that whole mafioso rap thing that like Wu Tang was doing in the mid late '90s and all that kind of stuff, all that Raekwon the Chef type of stuff. So for a second, I was like, should we do Paulie Corleone? And no, I probably wouldn't be on your show today if I was Paulie Corleone. Feel me? We had a bunch, and I'm sure you remember the movie Dolomite.
Yeah.
And the bad guy in that movie was Willie Green, and he just he was the villain, but he was just cool, man. And Willie Green sounds like you drive purple Cadillacs and all that, So that's where that came from at the time, and that was the one that stuck. So thank you to the homies that pushed me in that direction versus some of the other stuff I had in mind. It will be a different story today.
Like legit, like when I first saw the name Willie Green, I'm like, yo, you sound like you play the guitar and you wear the suit, and you
Yeah, man, with the big lapels and all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it is.
You
Yeah,
drive you
exactly.
you drive the caddy, the one
you know,
the one shaped like an El Dorado.
exactly. The big boat joints.
The El
Exactly.
Dorados, right? So so how did you actually get into music? Where did this love for music come from? Because you're a very musical gentleman, and I've seen a lot of your videos, a lot of your conversations, seen you talk at MixCon, and it you can tell when someone is by the terms that you use and the way how you describe sonics. You can tell when someone is really in love with the music, and there's other people who kind of treat this as a profession. So, what got you started down the road of just loving music?
Oh man, I grew up in it really. I got a lot of musicians in my family. My grandfather was a great singer. My cousin is a great singer, but it was really my uncle. Shout out to Dave Mack. He is a guitarist and a singer and a songwriter and all that. And he just, from the very jump, one of the earliest things I remember getting is a little keyboard. And he gave me my first drum machine and bought me my first drum kit. So my mom's was probably real mad at him, but I was loving it, and he just gave me all the tools and always gave me that push to want to create. And that was my godfather, so I looked up to everything that he was doing. I was like, well, I want to be like Uncle Dave, so I need a drum machine now. I need this, I need that. And he brought me up, and I was involved in like school bands and all that, so I came up playing drums. And I played drums. I played like drum kit and bands and stuff, but also in orchestras and concert bands. So I had that classical percussion side too. Like I could play a drum kit, but I could play xylophones, or I could play timpani. You
Right.
know, but by the time I was 15, I was old enough and good enough that he put me in his band. He was like, all right, we're going to play these gigs. So set up, come inside and play on these set breaks. No, you can't sit at the bar. You got to sit outside in the truck and wait until we come back. But that started me off young, knowing what it was to be a professional musician. And, it's that balance, like you say. Some people look at it as, just the profession, or even like a get rich quick scheme type thing. It's like I'm gonna get a hit and then I'm gonna have this money to do other things. Um, I'll say if you get in this just to get rich, you might need another scheme, because you can be successful and make money in the music industry, but for every Kanye, there's a literal million producers who are not making that dough.
Right.
Um, and that's fine. You don't have to have a hit to be successful. You don't have to be on a billboard or on the billboard charts to be successful. You got to calibrate in your mind, well, what's success to you, right? And to me is I make records every day and I feed my family that way. And so I made it. I'm lucky I've got some big credits, but most of what I do is on the indie level. And that's great for me because that's what I listen to. So most days I work on records with artists who I love, and I love their music. And that's the real blessing, is that I actually like what I do every day. It's not just, well, all right, I'm at the job, let me EQ this snare and get this money and go home. It's like, no, let me EQ this snare. You know what I mean? Right? Like it's a difference to that. And it's something important, for what we do, is you gotta love the process. If you just here for the end result, your job is going to be miserable, because you got to do the process to get to the end result. And most of what we do is the process, right? The album releases one time, but you might work on it for a year. So that year's got to be good, not just that release day has got to be good. Feel me?
Yeah, 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 for sure. For sure. So, as a musician, a great musician, I kind of started off the same way. Started off on drums, and then I moved to the keyboard by the age of 13, and that's kind of what took me off to kind of getting into production over time. And then, you just find yourself as an engineer after a while. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
everybody I talk to is the same story. It's like I just ended up engineering after all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So starting off being a musician and working your way, working in the music industry, and especially it's great to hear that you do a lot of indie work as well. For the producer, engineer slash musician who is still striving to do their best to become better, or to work with bigger names, or to get bigger in the music industry, or to rub elbows with the right people, or to work with more clients, all of that, you know
Mm-hmm.
um what advice would you give them? What's kind of like the main keys and tools that you've learned throughout your career?
Oh man, there's a lot. The first one, I would say, the most important one to me, is to always do your best work. And it doesn't matter what the song is, doesn't matter what the artist is, um, because somebody who you don't know, or somebody in some position, is going to hear that at some point. And you're not going to be there to be like, oh yeah, but you know the files they sent me were jacked up, or man, I was having a bad day, or X, Y, and Z. Nobody cares about all the reasons because you only get that one first impression. And if your work sounds good, that's what they know. They're not there, you know what I mean? Like, nobody, intent is all good, but nobody cares about all that when it's just the product that matters, right?
Right.
And listeners, your artist fans really don't care about your whole backstory. It's just, does that beat smack? Can I understand the vocals? Does this song reach me? That's the job. And if you always serve the song so the song has the best results, you're always doing your job right.
Cool. So that's actually a very good key. Because there are a lot of artists now that in this digital age that we have a lot of tools that are simplifying things for us that are easier for us to work with. It's easier to get the job done, and to kind of one size fits all type stuff and
Hmm.
preset this or not really taking your time to make the song great because it's not really your song or not too many people are going to hear it. So that's really dope that that's one of the main key things that you find in your success. So
Yeah, man. Because you just said a lot right there. There's a few things in there that I want to reach. And first, like if you're working with up and coming artists, the idea is that they're going to progress, right? And the more that they do, and the better that your work is, the better that they're gonna do, right? So you always want to serve that artist to give them the best. And then when you start talking about the presets and one size all fits type thing, and it's like, here's one plugin that can do everything for you. It's like, all right, bet, like that's cool, and I'm all for tools that simplify the job. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, where we go back to every little tiny minute thing that somebody solved years ago. There might be an easy way, but if you got that easy way and I got that easy way, everybody else on the internet has access to those easy ways. So
right,
now it becomes more of, okay, if we all got these same tools, that now the playing field is leveled even more. So I got to work a little harder and master these tools,
mhm,
not just have them, but be the nicest on them. Because while it's all love and everybody needs to do their thing, I want people to call me back. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
and I
right,
want you to get your work too, and all the listeners here to get all their work. But I need to make sure that my phone stays ringing. So it's
right.
on me to make sure I'm mastering these tools, that I'm thinking outside of the box. But then that's where the artistry comes in. You and I could be given the same exact set of files to mix
Right.
and be given the same exact tools to mix them, but our mixes are never going to sound exactly the same, because you're an artist in what you do, I'm an artist in what I do, and so my own tastes and sensibilities are, this is where they start to creep in, because we all have that even playing field. So now it's about me mastering my understanding of music, knowing the
Mhm.
nuances to really take something from a B plus to a A. Right? That's that next step. We'll say, okay, well, what are the details that I'm focusing on? We got to be so much more detail oriented now, because there's a lot of us out here doing what we do.
Yo, you just said a lot, and I love it. And now that we kind of segue kind of into the techie conversation. This is
Let's get
something.
there. Let's get there.
This is a question that I have that I am excited to ask because I myself am a avid, very no pun to what I'm about to say. I am a religious user, religiously you how to say it? I'm a religious user of Cubase. That's my
Yeah.
main tool.
Yeah.
I have Pro Tools. I,
Hmm.
I have Logic on here, but
Hmm.
I use Cubase. That's what I use. So
That's what's up. Shout out to Steinberg, man.
my question to you is why do you use
Hmm.
Cubase and why and in this world to where that isn't the favorite, why do you use it?
Okay, word. So there's two parts to that. The first part with that is, I've been on Cubase for a long time. I started on Nuendo and then switched to Cubase, which is similar. I just don't do as much like post production film work, so I didn't need everything that Nuendo had. But when I started Nuendo one in like 2000,
Mm.
right? And I went with Nuendo at that point over Pro Tools because it had everything in there, right? Pro Tools, especially then, is great for recording, editing audio, mixing, but the MIDI capabilities, especially in 2000, were pretty much non-existent. Now Pro Tools is stronger in the MIDI, but as far as programming and producing within the DAW, Cubase got it. Cubase has got it, and anything you need, it's all in there. If you need time align vocals, you can go get Vocaline, or you could do that right in Cubase. It comes with it. If you need to do pitch correction, you can go get Melodyne, or you can use Very Audio right there in Cubase. Is right there. So first off, I'm thrifty. Feel me? So if I will have to buy 6 pieces of software, I could buy one that's doing everything. I'm already there. Um, and then over the years, I just got fast and comfortable. I can use Cubase in my sleep. I know Pro Tools. If you want to work around in different studios, Pro Tools is still the most common, although that's changing because, again, that even playing field, any DAW that you use is good enough and strong enough to make a professional record on.
All right.
So now we got to use what we're best on, right? Like, I know people who mix all their records in Ableton Live. And in my mind, I'm like, this is not set up in the way that I just work in my workflow. But that doesn't mean you can't make a hit record in Ableton. That happens every day, right? But the idea for engineering specifically is that when you're the engineer, if you're recording or you're mixing, the technical aspects of things need to be invisible, right? Like if you're doing a vocal session, the engineer doesn't get to be the one to slow everybody down. Like, oh, wait, what's the key command? I got to go to the menu. I do this.
Right. Right.
Everybody in the room is looking at you like, B, you're supposed to be the technician here. You're supposed to know what
Right.
it is, right? So I need something that I'm seamless and it's like, oh, you want that? I'm already set up. Yeah, no, 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 tell me, I'm good. I got, and it's just so invisible that I'm giving my clients the best service, right? So nowadays, and this is the main thing, whatever, for all the listeners, whatever you're best on, use that. If I book you and you're like, I record in Reaper, okay, let's go, but I expect your Reaper skills to be nice.
Hmm.
It can be whatever, because you can do any kind of record in any of the software, but I need to know that you're going to be operating at your peak performance. That's our job.
That's a very good answer. I get a lot of people when they come in the studio session with me, and they'll ask, they'll be like, "Hey, yo, what's this program you using? I've never heard of it." And then I say, and they be like, "Really? Well, why don't you use Pro Tools, or why don't you use Logic, or why don't you?" And to all the reasons why you just said is the reason to why I use Cubase. I started early off like you, maybe not that early, not New Window One,
Mm,
nowhere close. I think
hmm
I started off like when I started off on Cubase 4 when Cubase
Okay.
4 first came out. So that was a
hmm
while ago.
Sure.
And then I just used it because that's what was the best all-in-one type situation I could find at the time. And I wanted to jump ship for many years until Steinberg always gave me a reason to
hmm
not,
hmm
and now
hmm
it's like what you said, with Very Audio, you don't have to get Melodyne, even down to vocal line, that feature right there is a godsend. It's a
hmm
godsend if you work with anybody who's extremely vocally savvy and want to stack a million times, or you have a million
hmm
different voices. You can click a button and it saves some people, hours of nudging.
Dog,
It's
it's like that.
ridiculous.
I
It's
used to do all of my vocal edits, all that time aligning by hand for a long time, before I ever even had Vocaline. And, depending on what it was, if it was like a pop thing or R&B thing, that might be hours and hours of editing, and you're moving breaths around, you're moving certain consonants around, because that sound that you hear on the radio, it's a lot that went into that. And I was doing all that by hand, and then I got Vocaline. I was like, oh. okay, I got my time back, right? And then when Cubase put it in there, and that was a step up from Vocaline for a while now, but you see now Vocaline just dropped the new update, right? Because all the software companies are looking at each other
Right.
and stealing game from each other. It's like, oh,
Right.
okay, well, Pro Tools is doing that, Avid's doing that. Well, that's got to be in the next Cubase revision. Oh, okay, well, Cubase is doing this. Well, our next Vocaline thing has got to be there. So the fact that everything is more diversified and democratic means that the developers got to step their game up to
Mhm.
give us what we need, because with so many people using technology, the demand for quality is higher.
Yeah, and like what you just said, and I'm not trying to make this a Cubase plug, but Cubase, if you do want to sponsor the channel for any reason, given in this episode, please feel free to contact me at keefkeys.com. But other than that, other than that, I really do love Cubase for the updates that they're doing. They're always giving you the right tools that they think that you should need, and it turns out to be the right tool that you do need. So
Hmm.
that's kind of been my reason for not jumping ship, because I have like every other doll for, if somebody sends me a session or if I have to, interact with somebody else. But really, Cubase has just been awesome. But it was just amazing for me to see you use Cubase and a lot of your tutorials that you have. And I even saw the tutorial where you did um a record with stock Cubase plugins and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and that was just amazing to me. So, and to me, when I watch YouTube videos, um, when I see people who use the same software that I use in the fashion that I would use it, I can understand it a lot better sometimes. So,
Hmm.
seeing you do that, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know. I didn't even know that you could do a low cut on the pre. I always just
Hmm.
use band one. Like I
Right.
never.
Well, and there's so many nuances because all the software can do so many things. Logic is so powerful,
Right.
but that's not where my head is, and I'm a PC user rather than a Mac user. So I'm not even on Logic. And there's another example of people tell you, well, you need to have a Mac running Pro Tools to make a real record. Nah, yo, it's not 2001 anymore. Like it's not. It's not like that. Like it's all even. It's just really what are you comfy with, because that's what I want. You don't go have your house built and then give the contractor your saw and be like, build it with this. No, they got their tools. Let them cook.
That's awesome to say. That's awesome. So let me ask you this. Um, in where you're currently at now, you're in Brooklyn, correct?
Hmm.
So in Brooklyn, how often do you get walk-ins, or do you work with people in your community, or do you primarily just work with, artists that you've met throughout the years throughout, or are you still a local guy? Because a lot of people, a lot of people aren't as local as you would think they are. So, do
Hmm.
you still show love to the Brooklyn community, or are you
Oh,
pretty much just
always, always. I mean, born and raised in Hartford, but I've been in Brooklyn so long. Like, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Brooklynite for sure. And, it's really a combination of all those. The first question when people ask me, well, how do you get started? It's like, wherever you're at, find the scene that's there.
Mhm.
We live in this internet world where, yeah, we are very global now, and you can work with artists anywhere, and that's all great, and that happens, but there's still nothing like in person, face to face. Now we're doing a lot of that kind of thing over Zoom, but if I can go to a show and see somebody on stage and see that energy and the end result of what they do, I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is someone I want to work with. I'm gonna go buy him a beer right there and be like, hey, let's chop it up. You were great up there. What do you do? What are you working on? Do you need a spot or whatever? I'm a little bit older and I'm kind of washed, so I don't go to as many shows as I used to, pandemic aside,
Right.
but I keep my ear out, and I got a staff and I've got younger people on my staff, and so I ask them, yo, what do you listen to? Who do you like right now?
Right.
Because, I might be doing a zillion things and I might not be up on what's brand new. But I want to know,
Right.
right? Because I have my own ways of working, and I've established myself to the point that people come to me for what I do. but I at least have to be aware and have an understanding about what else is going on. I can't only be just so mono focused on me that I'm ignoring trends and styles and what other people are doing. If nothing else, to say, okay, that's not for me, but I understand it. You can't turn something down if you don't know what it is, right? Then you're just being closed off. If you look at it and you're like, okay, yeah, I see the style of how cats are doing this right now. But that's just not for me. You know, right now, big trend is that rock marciano, no drums type of vibe. There's a lot of that. You know, like I said, I'm a drummer, so automatically I'm like, yo, this is great for rock, but I put drums on I put drums on my stuff, you know, but at least to understand, okay, well, maybe I don't need the heaviest, stompingest drums in the world because trends are going, you know, this way or that way. But that also helps me connect with my artists because I want to know what they're listening to. Because at the end of the day, and everything just comes back to, it's about the artist and it's about the song. If the song is not asking for drums, I'm not here to force drums on it because now I'm compromising the song based on my opinion, right? If the artist is asking me for something, I can't compromise their vision because of mine. Because at the end of the day, when that thing is released, artist's name is in big letters on the front, and my name is in little letters somewhere on the inside in the credits. And so that's where that power balance goes. And, you know, being an engineer, I get to just go on to the next project. And maybe this one isn't my preferred thing that I would listen to, but no one asked for it to be my favorite. They just asked me to do my best job on it. So that's what I'm there for. But I get to go on to the next thing. The artist has to live with that body of work forever. That's part of their identity in a bigger way than it is mine. So I always got to have that check where it's like, okay, I may want to do X, Y, and Z, but they're asking me for this, so I have to do this. So I try to stay in touch. This is a long answer to get back to your original question, but I try to stay in touch with what's going on. And even though we are global, things are still local and regional to a certain degree, right? Brooklyn hip hop doesn't sound like Chicago, doesn't sound like Philly, even doesn't sound like LA. So I want to be in tune with where I'm at, and that's part of why I'm here, is for the scene and for the community that's here. So I work with a lot of those artists because I want to be available. I'm doing a little bit less walk-ins lately. You know, I'm lucky that my phone rings, and so you know, I'm focused on certain projects, and it's like now I'm booking 2, maybe 3 months out, and it's much more rare that it's like, okay, I got this week open, who wants to come in? I don't really have, you know, that opening, but that's a result of the work and the luck and the blessings and everything put me in that position. But I want to make the best music possible with the best artists possible. So if something speaks to me, I'm trying to do it.
So let me ask you this. How did you get the opportunity to work? So I grew up listening to gospel music, period. You know, my mom, my father growing up, that was a non-discussion thing. You know what I'm saying? I know every song from every era. I know how to play every single thing. You know, how did you get a chance to work with Donnie McClurkin? That was awesome to see that.
Oh man, that was a great experience. So the studio is closed now. It was called Legacy Recording Studios. It was in Manhattan, and you know, I was doing some work there from time to time, and I got called in just to do a vocal edit for Pastor Donnie for his duets album. And I was just gonna come in, drop this vocal in, line it up, and then pass it off to whoever's gonna mix it. And so I'm in the studio, and then the manager's like, okay, Pastor Donnie's coming in. And I'm like, okay, bet. That'll be cool. Be in the room with him, let him approve my work. And then I'm gone. This will be a couple hours. I told my wife I'd be home for dinner. Pastor Donnie shows up. It says, okay, the band's going to be here in a half hour. We're doing electric guitar, acoustic guitar, percussion, and then 4 singers to do the choir parts. You ready?
In a half hour, and you had
And
to
I'm like,
set up.
yes. In my mind, I'm like, yo, okay, what am I going to use, this and that? But that's one of those things that I call that step up moment, where somebody puts you in that hot seat, and what you going to do? You're going to say, no, let me go get somebody else? Or are you going to step up and do what the artist is asking you to do. So I turned to the assistant. I said, okay, get me these mics, plug them in here. This, I'm going to get the Pro Tools session ready to go. And we're going to put this thing together quick and double time because we're not going to be the ones holding up the show, right? When the band gets here, they expect to sit down and get to it. And that's just one of those things where you got to be ready for the scenario that comes up. You know, you got to have your knowledge of your microphones, have your knowledge of your preamps and your outboard gear or whatever it is. So when somebody asks you, you can get to it, or at least have, if you, maybe you don't know this exact compressor, right? But you know what compressors do. You know the basic parameters, your threshold, attack, release, ratio, these things. So it's like, okay, I can make it work. It may not be the first thing that I would have thought of. It may not even be what I have in my own studio, but I know what this is. And so I can lay hands on it and get it popping. So that what was supposed to be 2-hour vocal edit turned into 4 days of tracking, tracking the choir, tracking the band, tracking Pastor Donnie himself, and it's just like, you're not going to say no because you're in the room to say, yes, I will get that done for you and it's going to sound good. And that's your only option. If not, you get kicked out of the room. I've had situations where I just didn't have it that day, and everybody has their bad days, but I didn't have it. And I didn't get brought back the next day for the next session. And you go home and you're like, damn, I know I lost that gig, and your ego takes a shot and you're feeling that. Yeah. But then you just pick up and it's like, okay, well, what didn't I have? All right, I need to know my key commands better. This needs to be faster. So let me focus on that. Man, that was the wrong mic for this thing, man. That thing doesn't sound good. Okay, well, what would have the right mic been? Let me look into that. So everybody's going to have that bad day. But the idea is to minimize your number of bad days, or at least minimize them in front of other people. You know what I mean? And when you're on, that spotlight is on, you want to be ready to take the big shot.
I literally just did an interview with this guy named Frank Socorro, and who was the engineer for Diddy and Bad Boy for a long time. And he literally just had a similar situation where he said that I stayed late just to edit some things from the session. And Diddy had walked in on him like, why are you still here? He was like, well, I'm trying to get everything right for the, make sure you have all your files and stuff and stuff like that. And Diddy hired him and said, I'm flying you out to LA the next day. And for 6 months, he was out there working with Diddy.
Wow.
And it's crazy because similar to your situation, it's like, hey, I was just doing my job at the time. I was supposed to be doing it. An opportunity presented itself, and I walked right through that door.
You got to be ready for it, and it's what you say is doing their job. But as simple as that sounds, the fact that Diddy recognized that off the jump is like, okay, you're coming with me, is because he was doing it, which means that there's plenty of others who are not, right? Because the thing is, if you're in the chair, if you're at the console, you're expected to know how to do the stuff, right? That's the basis. If not, the artist is going to think, well, what are you in the room for, right? You're supposed to know how to do this. I asked for it. You're the person I hired for that, But it's the attention to detail. It's all the little things, making sure that things are right, not just that things are done, because those are two very different things. Wow. That's the separation. Don't just finish it. I want you to complete it. I want everything right, because I don't want to have to think about that. Like the people who work for me, it's like, if I ask you to do something, that's because I don't want to do it myself. So if I have to triple check you and then go back and fix it, everybody's time was wasted. I could have just done it myself off the jump and this could be finished. So I'm not going to ask you next time. Now you're losing opportunities, right? And that's not for me to be a jerk, like to tell somebody, oh, you suck, you didn't edit that right. But what we can't do is put out a bad edit where there's clicks and pops in there. That can't stand, because that reflects on the entire team. So if you can't do it right, I'm going to have to do it. But I want you to do it. I want you to get it right, because I want you to grow. And again, I want to do that, right? So when everybody's doing their part, everybody rises up.
Wow. So let me ask you this. You worked with a lot of artists. What is one of your pet peeves, or what is one of the things that an artist can do
Mm.
to actually improve their artistry? Yeah.
Mm. Uh, I mean, I could make a list. I will make a whole list. No, the main thing, and this kind of goes back to what we're talking about, as far as being prepared and doing your job right and everything. It goes to the artist too. And, I can book a session for somebody and have them come in and they can spend 5 hours writing their rhymes, and I will bill them for that time and I'll put that money in my pocket and we can all go home. That's not a good use of anybody's time. You know what I mean? I understand the energy of being in the studio and all that, but what are you paying me for you to write your rhymes for? You could do that at home for free, right? Like, just when you come in the studio and you're not prepared and you don't know what you're doing, I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's not that I need the money this bad. I'm not balling, but I don't need the money that bad. I'm here to make records, not just to leave something on loop for you and eventually get back to it. I can play on my phone at home, for free or whatever. So yeah, it's just that preparation. The more prepared everybody in the room is, better that song's gonna be.
Wow.
So it's like, be ready, come in, know what you want to do, or at least have an idea. We can experiment, but don't be like, oh yeah, just loop that up, dog. I'm gonna roll something and then we're gonna sit here and then I'm gonna write in a little while. You wasted my time, you know what I mean? So, and that goes for everybody. I remember early on in my career, I had a session and it was with some new clients and they came in, they were like, okay, we're ready to go whenever you are. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Because the way I work is, if you're the artist, when you walk in the door, you should be able to walk through that front door, right into the booth, step in front of the microphone and record. Right? So my signal chain is checked all the way through. The headphones are right. If I can, I'm trying to get the track from the artist in advance. So that's already up in Cubase. So I've gone in the booth, or my assistant has gone in the booth. They check the mic is clear, there's no noise, the headphones are right, the beat is loud enough, everything. You need to be able to walk in and get right to work. I'm not holding you up. But I had these clients and they were like, okay, oh, you're ready? You don't have to go like roll a blunt first and go do this next Y and Z. And I'm like, no, I'm at work. I'm at work. There's no blunt breaks at work. That's not how jobs work. So I'm ready to go. Y'all can do whatever you want to do because you're paying for the time. But when you're ready, I'm gonna hit record.
Right.
Let's go. Right. So it's just that, and it's this balance of music is art. And we want to be artistic and enjoy ourselves and get in our zones. And I'm not saying don't do whatever you do during your session to be in your zone, but be in your zone, right? Don't go so far into whatever you're doing that you're out of pocket and you can't even do your thing right, because we could have did the session tomorrow when you were ready, But we need to be in here, and it's just that balance of the music business, right? It's not the music, do any old thing just to have fun. If we're putting something together professionally, we gotta find that balance there.
Wow. That's such a dope tip, because I do work with a lot of artists. Some artists come in here and they are to the T. They know exactly what they want to do and they're ready to go. But then you do have a great selection of those artists that have no clue what they want to do, and then they leave too much creativity up to the engineer. And the reality of it is, I can do what I think is right. I can do what I think is right, but at the end of the day, this isn't my song. Like
That's exactly it. It's not your song. So, and I get that. And a lot of times with younger artists, they come in, and this is just an experience thing. This is not a knock on anybody, but they come in and it's like, well, what should I do here? And my first question is, well, what do you want to do then? Because it ain't my song. Because if it's my song, we might have started at a whole different place. We might not even be on this beat. It wouldn't even be this beat if it was me. But I'm not here to judge your beats. I'm just here to make them sound good.
Right.
But what do you want this song to be? I'm not going to write your rhymes for you. If you want me to write a hook for you, well, we're going to charge different for that. That's a different service. But we're trying to make this be what you want it to be. And so what do you want it to be? And I always try to foster that, especially with new artists. Like, I'll give direction, but I'm like, look, anytime you ask me what I think, I'm gonna ask you what you think first. If you're not confident, because if you ask me twice, oh, do you think that verse was good enough? I'm gonna be like, well, you don't, so cut it again. If you got to ask me, if you don't know that it's fire, if you got to ask me if it's good, we got to do it again, because if it was good, you would know.
Right.
Right. And I want to instill that confidence in my artists. That's the big thing when you talk about vocal production, right? Because beat making is become what is now thought of as production. You know, oh, I produced the song, I made the beat.
Right.
No, you made the beat. That's the beat making part. The production part is about people relations. It's about putting the right person in the right spot, and maybe that means you making the whole track. But you can't just say, well, I produced the track, vocalist, get on this. Okay, we done here. Like, if there's a vocal producer in the room, which, like you said, often turns out to be the engineer, you know, and that's another thing. I'll ask somebody, do you want my feedback, or do you want me just to capture what you're doing? Because there are those people, it's like, well, I know what I want to do, and I don't really need a whole lot of insight, and that's fine. You know, and I'm like, okay, my job is to run the machines, make sure everything sounds crispy, and get out of the way of your process. You got to look at it case by case scenario. But if I'm the vocal producer, the first thing I want to do is instill confidence in that performer. Because the scariest place in the world, I don't care who you are, is being in front of a mic, getting ready to rap or sing a song that no one has heard for the first time. If that's a personal song that so-and-so is about to sing, we might need to dive into some real, you know, emotional stuff. First time I learned this, a buddy of mine was recording a song, and there was one part of the verse about an abortion that he and his partner chose to have, you know, when during this pregnancy thing, and the artist flubbed one of the lines, and I'm like, okay, I know this is wrong, but I have to now go back to this person and tell them to re-say this line about a very painful thing in their life. But it has to be right, because what you really can't have is a flubbed line on something so important on the record that goes out, because now everybody's looking at that in a different way. So that was the first time to be like, look, we need to talk about this, figure out how you want to say it, how you want to present that. And this is going to be hard, but we're going to have to do this 4 or 5 times to get it right. And it was a challenge. But at the end of the session, they were like, yo, dog, thank you for that. And thank you for your patience and sensitivity to that, because it had to be right. And I had to work through that, right? Vocal production is psychiatry. You know, when people come in, and I get this a lot, you know, people come in like, okay, I want to record this song. Okay, what's the song about? And people are like, yo, no one ever asked me that before. And it's like, you're in the booth sharing thoughts and emotions, and nobody ever asked you what you're talking about? Like, how can you produce an artist if you don't know what it is that they're talking about? So I always start there. If it's something painful, it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. I'm here to listen to you, and let's find a way also to kind of get you back in that mindset. If you're writing a breakup song, but you're already on to your next relationship and you're real happy, that breakup song that you wrote a year ago is not going to hit the same. I kind of need to get you back into that space that you were in when you wrote that. And it's not going to be easy, but that kind of stuff translates through the mic. That's the kind of stuff that takes it from just singing some words to performing a song. I got to get you to perform it. So we're going to go there, but I got to make a safe space for whoever it is to be able to get in that zone and know I'm not there judging. No, I'm not there laughing or whatever. I'm there with them to get that performance out of them. So phone is off, is put away. You're not going to hear my ringer during a session ever, because then all of a sudden the artist is thinking, you're thinking about something else, right? I'm not tweeting while you're cutting a vocal, because I'm obviously not paying attention to what we're all here to do. So it might as well be somebody else in the chair that actually cares about what we're here to do, right? For that 5-hour vocal session or whatever, I'm here with you. I'll check Twitter later on.
Wow, you just said a whole lot.
I'm wordy. My wife says I'm long-winded,
but I appreciate those who can fully articulate you know exactly what they're thinking, and the reasoning behind why they do what they do. That shows the different level of excellence and shows that you actually know what you're talking about when you can fully describe it. So trust me, no apologies to me with that.
Word, 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 word.
So
Yeah,
so
man.
so let's talk futuristic real quick. What things do you have in the works now? What things are you going to be putting out soon? Are you going to be doing any more conferences?
Oh yeah,
What you
yeah.
got going on?
There's lots of stuff. I mean, the main thing right now is that new Arm and Hammer and Alchemist. The new album just dropped the end of last week. It's called Haram. So look out for that. I've been working with Arm and Hammer for a long time. I've been working with Billy Woods for about 15 years or so now. Like that's my man, that's my family, and we've done hundreds and hundreds of songs together. But there's new ones. So Arm and Hammer, for those who don't know, is a group. Billy Woods and Elucid, both here out of Brooklyn, from the label Backwoods Studios that I do a lot of work with. And then they linked up with the super legendary producer, The Alchemist. Y'all probably heard that Alchemist and Freddie Gibbs Alfredo album that was just up for Rap Album of the Year a couple weeks ago. Alchemist is done. I mean, just Google. I can't even. We don't have enough time here for me to list his bona fides. But true legend. And so I recorded most of that album. I mixed it. I mastered that, and that's out right now. And I think on everybody's standpoint on that project is some of everybody's finest work. So Arm and Hammer and Alchemist, Haram, that's out right now. Coming up soon. Uh, there's a few things that are in the works. I can't spill the beans on just yet. But I worked the homie Larange from Mellow Music Group. He just did an album with Namir Blade, fantastic MC, singer. That album is coming out. The single's out now, and then I think the album is coming out maybe the beginning of May, end of April, called Imaginary Everything. That's something special. Larange is a real talented producer. I've known him for a long time, and Namir Blade is very specially talented, so that's a nice project. Um, I've got some cool stuff that I'm planning in the works. You know, I'm doing the record thing, but I'm also, I consider myself a sonic artist where I do installations, like gallery installations and things like that, avant-garde things. I guess, that whole 2020, that Rona year is just kind of out. So I guess a couple years ago now, I did a project called Press Play, where it was a gallery installation in Manhattan. I sampled paintings, and I made a whole album out of music I made literally from sampling paintings. So I did that, but now I'm like, well, what's my next big artistic thing gonna be? So I'm not ready to reveal anything yet, but just know that's coming, and it's gonna be something really wild. I got some lofty goals for it, and I'm going for it. So that's gonna be some real crazy stuff. But yes, conferences definitely. I got something coming up I'm planning. I'm a member of the Audio Engineering Society. I'm a big time member of the AES. I'm on the board of governors and all that. And so I'm planning a modern music production symposium. It's going to be 2 days, and it's going to be panels and guest lectures and stuff, just about hip hop and R&B being on the cutting edge of modern music production, and what are new techniques that are people using, new software, just new concepts for what we do, and push that forward. Like we said, a lot of us have some of those same tools. But what are those next tools that we
Right.
have that we can use to do the fly stuff that nobody heard before? That's what I want to do. I want to make the records that you don't understand, and you got to ask me, how did you do that? And then I want to share that with you so you can do the next thing. I want to really push forward. I don't want to make the same thing somebody else did. I want to do the next thing.
Wow. So that's awesome, man. I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on with me today. This was definitely exciting, and I was stoked just to have this conversation.
Man, this has been great. This has been great, man. I really appreciate you having me here.
Can you tell everybody where to find you at if they need to look you up?
Yes, sir. So Instagram and Twitter, I'm Willie Green and the number 1. That's WILLIE, Green number 1. I'm on Facebook/Willie Green Music, but I don't really look at my Facebook that much, so that's not where to find me. Yeah, the IG and Twitter, I'm on there, and I'm a regular dude, so reach out. We could talk music, we could talk basketball. I'm an NBA fan. The Knicks are nice this year. Well, nice. They are above average this year, which is, we will take that here in New York. You know what I mean? I'm a sneaker collector. We could talk Jordans, we could talk Air Maxes, all that, man. I'm a pretty regular dude. So reach out and stay in tune with me and see what's coming up next.
Once again, I want to say thank you. And everybody, I'm Keyz from KeyzKeyz.com. If you would, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more videos like this. And I will see you in the next video.
All right. Peace.